What's up, guys? It's Dynasty from Mountaintops. I'm Mickey, along with Jeremy. How you doing tonight, my man?
I'm doing fantastic. We are into the thick of football season. I can't get enough of it. How about yourself?
Oh man, 2 weeks in, I'm loving it. I went 7-1 so far in leagues, 4-0 in Dynasty. So I'm pretty happy right now.
wow, you're doing fantastic. You're doing a lot better than I did. I went 0-4 last. I went 0-4 in week one, and I went 2-2 last week. But now that the path has worked itself out, a 2-2 record is what I want going forward. Because there's two leagues at which I'm tanking in, two leagues which I'm excelling in. So if I can go 2-2 this going forward, I'm a happy camper.
Yeah, I have the two Dynasty leagues I'm both going for, as I think we've talked about on here. Keeper league is keeper league, so you always go for it. And then I have one redraft league that is free, but you win money, which is kind of awesome.
Hey,
yeah,
can't beat that, man. Money's money.
That's pretty cool. You don't have to do anything, and you win money if you win. So I was pretty happy about getting in that league this year. But I do have to say, as well as I'm doing, I'm already out of my guillotine league. So that was a little sad. So
apologies to see you beheaded, but off to another day. This allows you just more focus on your other leagues. That's all this is for.
That's it, exactly. And like this proves that you should listen to your own advice. And I'll just say this real quick before we start. I have been saying that BTJ is going to take a step back, have I not? Pretty much all offseason because of Travis Hunter, him not actually performing with Trevor Lawrence, performing with Mac Jones. And I didn't take my own advice. So I drafted him in the first round, and he has not performed yet. So it's my own fault for not listening to myself, which is why I'm out. And also JJ McCarthy is threw a dud up for me. So that didn't help either.
No, you can't win when you have a McCarthy-like game. It's almost impossible. So
yeah, 5 points, I think, from your quarterback. You're virtually done. No chance.
Yes.
So is what it is. Guillotine's fun. I've been in the top 7 the first 2 years we did the league, so I'm okay being out early. It just lets me focus on the dynasty a little bit more, right? So,
amen.
All right, enough talking about our leagues. I wanted to gloat a little bit because I'm usually not this good early.
Hey, 7-1 is gloatable. I allow it. Stamp of approval.
Mickey's the only one who beat me, my wife.
Hey, that's even better than that's brownie points for you. You can use another day.
Yeah, right. So it's been fun. But we're gonna get started here. We're gonna talk about early surprises in the first 2 weeks of the season. I know it's only 2 weeks in, but there's already been a lot of surprises in my eyes. So we'll talk about that. We'll also get into the week 2 takeaways and standouts as we do every week. And then week 3 flex options. And I will not give you waiver wire. I will actually give you flex options this week. I realized I did a little bit too deep of options there last week. So we're going to rein it in a little bit more for me here. So first off, we're going to go to early surprises. I'm going to let you start because I think the first thing on here is the most important.
Yeah, we're going to go with the explosion of the NFL as a whole. Like, I don't know why it seems to surprise me each year, but the ratings skyrocketing each and every season, it speaks volumes. For example, we have just our week 1 numbers available. They have an average of 22.3 million people viewing each game per game. That's 22 million per game.
Even 1 o'clock.
Even 1 o'clock games, yeah. So on average, it was 22.3 million people per game. It's the most watched week 1. It's up 5% since last year. It's up 19% since 2023. It's the 3rd straight week 1 to have 4 games deliver over 20 million viewers. Those 4 games were the Dallas-Philly game, Baltimore-Buffalo, Detroit-Green Bay, and then the Minnesota-Chicago game. The Dallas-Philadelphia game ranked in almost a little over 28 million viewers. So what surprised me is just every single time I take a step back and realize the NFL is literally never going to get bigger. Each and every week it's bigger. Each and every week there's more eyeballs on the product, and each and every week there's more sponsors into the product, dumping money into the aspects and the revenue into the aspects for TV, for digital, for all things included. And I think it's just cool to see the retrospect of how many people are enjoying this wonderful sport and happy that this is back.
Yeah, no, that's some incredible numbers. I expected like Thursday, Friday to be good because the games were big, but and maybe Sunday night as well. I believe that was Buffalo, Baltimore. Um, but even the 1 o'clock games, when you can't watch all of it unless you have Sunday ticket or whatever you call it, uh,
Correct.
that's kind of That's super impressive. Um, so yeah, that's pretty cool to hear. So I don't have anything too sophisticated like that, which was pretty cool to see hear that. But my number one takeaway, or my first takeaway, not number one, um, is Mahomes is back. Mahomes is back in fantasy somehow, and 0-2. So apparently he learned how to run, which is great for fantasy, which is what we talk about mainly, right? Um,
Facts.
but he's 0-2 in the winning percentage. So it's kind of interesting how he got better in fantasy, and then it just doesn't matter. Um, they did have two really good games, probably two of the top five teams in the NFL from what I've seen so far, that they had to face. So I think they're going to be fine. But I just thought that was really interesting. Everything revolves around Mahomes, it seems like, in the media anyway. So figure why not jump on that ship for a second. And I've been a Mahomes hater in fantasy for a long time. If he continues the way he is running, which I don't think he'll be able to continue this, I mean, it is for a need because there's no receivers really left, and his offensive line hasn't really helped him too much. Um, so if he continues running the way he has been, I would put him in the top four, and probably one of those other four would fall out a little bit because of his prowess in the passing game over pretty much everybody on that list except for Josh Allen. But I just don't see him being able to continue this rushing ability that he's been able to have. I think he had like 90 yards last week or on this
something like that. Yeah,
unbelievable. I haven't seen that in a long time for me. It's like the Fountain of Youth hit him or something. So that was my first takeaway. Why don't you go ahead with your second one here?
Okay, my second takeaway is the exorbitant amount of kickoff returns that have happened according to the league. Like with the simple rule change that occurred at the beginning of the year. Okay, so let's take a step back. The new dynamic kickoff rules were put into place 2 years ago, and it really didn't take off too much, where they couldn't move upon kickoff and everything between there's a designated area to kick. Well, the NFL made that simple rule change where the touchback now goes to the 35-yard line. Kickoffs have now increased up to 77%. Out of 153 kickoffs that were done on week one, 118 were taken out. That's a 75%. And it actually shot up a tad bit more with the early numbers for week two. So I wanted to highlight that the NFL's attempt for the past 3-4 years to increase kickoffs and to increase excitement into the NFL kickoff aspects is finally working. It took moving the ball up to the 35-yard line for a touchback, and now nobody wants to have a touchback, and we're having, like I said, 75% of the kickoffs returned or the least attempted to be taken out, which makes that play relevant again and more fun to see.
Yeah, and I think the reason that the 35 to the 30 is such a big difference is the 5 yards is something, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the kick returns, if you were returning a kick, were going to the 30 anyway, the 27 to 30 yard line anyway. If you watched last year, this year they're getting to about the 30 as well, and that's when most of the kick returns have been stopped. There have been some, obviously, like any other year, that have gone further or scored or anything like that, but that's I think where the big difference is those 5 extra yards giving for free when you typically, when last year it was pretty much, if I boot it in the end zone, you're getting to the 30. If I let you run it, you're getting to the 27, 28. What's the difference, right? Probably the 30. So that 5 extra free yards is kind of where I see the difference lying. But yeah, that it has been super exciting because some of these kick returns have been pretty interesting. Pretty fun to watch. It's a good one. All right, for me, I went a little nerdy on the second one. There is so much parity in fantasy football the first 2 weeks. I didn't go back and look and see if this is a normal thing or not the first 2 weeks, but except for running backs. Running backs, they had 6 of the same top 10 both weeks. So those were Barkley, Robinson, McCaffrey, Javonte Williams, which is a surprise in his own right, Achane and Cole. And then 3 others who would have been second or running back 2s both weeks in Etienne, Hubbard, and Taylor. Everybody else outside of the top 10 or had one top 10 and performed poorly the second week, such as Henry. The QBs, they had 3 that were top 10 both weeks. And that's Jackson Mahomes and Daniel Jones, which we'll talk about later on him, so I'm not going to talk too much on that. But everyone else, whether you were in the top 10 one week or not, had a subpar performance the second week outside the top 15. So that was pretty interesting. And then the biggest one, or I'm sorry, I'll go to tight ends next. The tight ends were Ertz, Juwan Johnson, and Warren. Tyler Warren, the rookie, were the only 3 in the tight ends that were top 10 both weeks as well in fantasy. Kelsey and Fannin were in the top 15 both weeks, as well as Kraft and McBride. So there is a little bit less change in the once you hit the top 15, but in the top 10, there was only 3 of them. And then the most fascinating part, and there's a ton of receivers, so I understand that, but there's only one player so far this year, or in the first 2 weeks, that scored in the top 10 both weeks at wide receiver, and that's Puka Nacua. There's only 4 others who were wide receiver 2s 2 weeks in a row who also had a top 10, and that's Odunze and Keenan Allen, Johnston and Quentin Johnson, and Deebo Samuel. So pretty interesting in my eyes that there's just so much diversity right now in the first couple of weeks. And I'll keep track of this and kind of see if this continues or if it's really just an aberration of week 1, week 2, and then people kind of get into it, if that makes sense. We started to see that this past week with St. Brown, Neighbors, Chase, were the top 3. So we'll see if this trend continues. But I thought it was very fascinating to look and see, like, okay, you did horrible the first week, and now you're wide receiver 3 the second week. Like, how big that changes every single week. So, your thoughts?
No, it's great points that you've brought up. I'm a big Puka advocate, so no surprise that he's on this list. But there's some names that you mentioned there on that list that are a little bit surprising, at least just from a calendar year. Roma Dunze, I know obviously it was his rookie year last year and was going to a weird system, and you weren't expecting greatness from out of the gate. But Roma Dunze has exploded this year, and it's fun to see. And Tyler Warren, big advocate of Tyler Warren. If there's a tight end that I am more excited for out of this class, not named Mason Taylor, it's Tyler Warren. I am a big fan of his landing spot, and so far his ability to separate and be a all-time starter, in my opinion, is already evident.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you had speaking of rookies, you had your third one.
And speaking of rookies, I kind of wanted to call out, which is kind of funny because probably be having this exact same conversation again in a calendar year, but the usage between the rookie running backs, particularly the ones that have been drafted extremely high, in Amarian Hampton and Alshon Jeffrey. The running back usage is a little skewed for the Chargers because Hampton is in there 89% of the running back snaps. At least he was week 1 and going into week 2. So he's on the field for these, but he's not necessarily getting the touches that anybody was wanting. Hampton's at about 22 touches for the season, and Gentry's only at about 19. So these are minuscule touches over the 2 weeks, of which individuals were anticipating them to have large volumes. Especially when we have individuals such as Bill, JCM, who's coming in through here, who was also sharing with Eckler, who was getting 10 to 12 per game. When you have Gentry and Hampton not sharing running back shares, or sharing them with such minimal amounts, they're facing 75% of the snap share plus than the running backs, and they're not obtaining as many running back carries. It's more so a little bit of a surprise that, again, the high draft pick on the rookies because of the rookie hype makes it a little bit misskewed until we see exactly how they're being used and how they're being adapted into the NFL.
That's a great point. And obviously, you still start these two, correct? I mean,
100%. You're still starting them with confidence, but I mean, scratch that. You're starting them, but you're not starting with confidence. And when a lot of these individuals were drafted as early as they were, with as promised as they were, you should be able to start these individuals with confidence. And right now, you're not, because the snap share and the usage alone is a little alarming.
No, that's a great point. So that's what I was kind of curious about. Like, you may not be confident, but you have to kind of start them at this point, right? Like, they were your
correct, yeah.
picks. They were supposed to be studs. They were probably third or fourth at worst in your dynasty draft. For Hampton, Genty, almost everybody was one. It seems like.
Yes.
So you have to ride the wave a little bit. And I would throw Trevion Henderson in here as well, but that's just me because I love him. But you're seeing the same thing with him, where he's not getting the usage behind a back who showed up this past week, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, it's very fascinating that these two rookies who were like can't miss. Not saying they're missing or anything, but they're just not performing as everyone expected, if that makes sense. The first in the season. So
100%.
And then my last takeaway kind of plays off of the parody. It's like wide receiver roulette is what I called it, where who knows which wide, throw a dart at a wide receiver and you have no idea if he's going to perform or not. We've had so many random names that have performed. We've had so many big names that haven't performed, and I said one earlier, Brian Thomas Jr. He has not performed, who everyone expected to perform. We look at Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnston, and they're the 2 and the 3 on their own team, supposedly, but Lon McConkey's nowhere to be seen. He's had okay days, but he hasn't had those top 10s, top 20s, or 2 weeks in a row. So I find it super interesting that the wide receiver rooms are so loaded in most places that, like, okay, you're going to double cover. You're going to double, I don't know if this happened or not, but you're going to double Lad. We'll throw it to this person. Or a great example is Pickens had a rough day. CD 8, week 1. They both kind of 8 week 2 because defense was a little suspect. Wan'Dale Robinson and Neighbors were both top 5 this past week. Last week, they weren't anywhere. There was a witness protection program. So, like, it's just, it's fascinating to me that wide receivers there's so many of them, if that makes sense, that who knows what you're going to get each week because there's just so many out there. And it's really the only position that's like that because quarterbacks are kind of watered down, yes. Tight ends have always been watered down except for 2 or 3. But the wide receivers, there's, 50 that you could probably start and not be too, yes, some of them might have a bad week here and there, but more than often, they're going to have a decent week. If you think about it that way, like, there's so many options. It's incredible to me with what the wide receivers are doing the past couple of years.
You bring up a good point because a lot of individuals like to dog the Green Bay Packers running back or wide receiving room, and it is loaded. And there is a lot of individuals, and it's already seeing with the way that the season has started with Dobbs and Golden and Kraft and everyone getting several targets, but not enough to make all these individuals fantasy relevant, with the exception of Kraft. But you don't have this type of dogging on the other wide receiving rooms when all the other wide receiving rooms are just as crowded with talent. So it is something that I think needs to be brought up a little bit more. And I'm glad you brought this up because each running back room, or I keep on calling it room, each wide receiving room has at least two alpha males in there that are going to be on a consistently basis startable.
Yeah, absolutely. I go to Carolina. Okay, Bryce Young realizes that you're going to double Tet, maybe, is what my assumption was. I didn't watch the game, but Tet didn't have a great game. Hunter Renfrow is top 7 in fantasy. That makes no sense. He was on the team 2 months ago. You know, like
it's insane.
Like you can just throw a dart and hopefully it sticks. You have no idea. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter what their name is. Jamar Chase first week was number 77 wide receiver. Now that's not going to happen a lot, and that dart is going to be hit more often than not. But he was wide receiver 3 this week. Just
with Browning more than half of the game.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
He got. I think he got 10 out of 16 targets with Browning in there. So again, he even just plays another quarterback. You just never know. So
yeah, absolutely. So those were our big takeaways out of the first week here, or the first couple weeks. Just the kind of surprises, I guess. And I would have to say, I don't know if you have one on the tip of your tongue, but I would have to say my biggest player surprise, and everyone probably knows this, is Javonte Williams. What he's doing for Dallas, I never saw coming, and I'm worried about my Jaden Blue call. So,
fair enough. No, I got one that comes to mind, and we can let that one feed into our next segment here. One does come to mind.
Yeah, no, we're going to talk about our week 2 takeaways, and I'll let you have the floor since it segued so well.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, so thank you for that. But no, one of the biggest surprises that I have is by far the resurgence of Danny Dimes. Look, like, who would have thought this, honestly? I mean, he's having like a complete career resurgence. If he continues this path without any other standouts, he's a clear front runner for comeback player of the year, in my opinion. He's off to by far his best start of his career. He has completed 45 of 63 passes for 588 yards and 2 touchdowns, 0 turnovers in two games. He's also been running the ball, punching in 3 rushing scores. He currently sits as QB2. Daniel Jones, after 2 weeks, QB2. Not QB2 because of alphabetical order, not QB2 because he's the second quarterback on his team. No, he is QB2 in the fantasy world. Well, the Colts have jumped out 2-0. He is now 2-0. Everything's going well. He has himself – everyone is producing well as the surrounding cast. Pittman is coming back into his form of what he was at the beginning of the season last year and these seasons past. Josh Downs, Alex Pierce, and then obviously – Tyler Warren has come out into the shell to becoming one of the best tight ends, and not only in the rookie class, but one of the best tight ends to have in the league. So kudos to Daniel Jones for what he's been able to do. It's been fun to watch. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can continue to do, and if this path continues to go forward. But he's producing fantastic numbers. He's producing mistake-free football. And the Indianapolis Colts are the only team in the entire league that have not punted the ball. All because of Daniel Jones.
I'm letting that sink in for a second.
We just did an opening segment of Daniel Jones praise. That's where we're at right now. But it's well-deserved. It's well-deserved. There is not a quarterback, at least in the AFC, that has played better than Daniel Jones at this present time.
No, I don't know about that. But I do agree he's had a heck of a start. Lamar Jackson has something to say about that. But Daniel Jones has played really, really well. And let me ask you this. I was calling for Riley Leonard, as you know, because I don't believe in either of the other two. Do you think this is going to be consistent, like we saw 2 years ago with Daniel Jones when he got paid? Or do you think this is going to be the Daniel Jones we saw every other year?
I think this has potential to be consistent of what we saw for 2 years ago. I don't want to say that I'm always tooted the horn of Daniel Dimes, but he has the pieces of what make a fantasy quarterback relevant. He has an arm. He has the rushing ability. He has the knowledge of a quarterback play. He's made some mistakes, and he's had some things where he's a target. Like we all can talk about Daniel Jones making a rushing attempt and then falling flat on his face, tripping over his own feet. He does things like that. You're like, okay, well, it knocks him back 15 pegs and 15 steps. But when you're looking at this and you see the weapons that you would want as a fantasy relevant quarterback, he has them all. I think if he continues this, which I can't really see why he wouldn't, I think Daniel Jones is the quarterback for the year. And it really makes the Anthony Richardson situation curious. But if things are continuing, his supporting cast around him continues to play well, which I can't see why they haven't been. Again, Pittman looks as a Pittman in the past, and Tyler Warren is a fantastic safety blanket for him. Alec Pierce down deep, and Josh Downs all over the field. Daniel Jones can be really successful this year. Let's put it this way. I, in my championship league, have lost in 1 week Joe Burrow and JJ McCarthy. My waiver dollars are going toward Daniel Jones on the waiver wire. So I'm doing the best I can to get him replaced in my 1 QB league.
No, and that's a great point. My worry is that we saw this last year with two teams. One was able to continue it, one was not, in the Saints and the Commanders. Whew, almost got in trouble there. So I haven't figured out what the Colts are yet. I think they have the talent to be the Commanders and a team that you weren't expecting to be this good, right? But I still think there's that chance that because it's Daniel Jones and he gets negative, he also gets some negativity because of, especially in New York, because they picked Daniel Jones over Saquon Barkley to give a contract to. And that's what I don't know if that's the truth or not, but that's what the perception was in the media and in the fan base, was that they both had an opportunity to get a contract, and you gave Daniel Jones the contract, not Saquon Barkley. So, and now Saquon Barkley won a Super Bowl already. Daniel Jones is not on the team anymore. So, like, I think there was a little bit of stink on that, which is why he's being unfairly treated. Also, the way he played with Neighbors was not very good in his toe. So I'm not sure what team they are yet, but right now they look like the Saints of last year, if that makes sense. And they beat a good team. The first week I was like, well, Miami looks like a joke. But then you go out and you beat Denver in a last-minute field goal, I believe, or something like that. And that's a legitimate win on your belt. So going back to Daniel Jones, I'm still out, but I can see where the hype is and why everyone's excited about it right now. 100%. So speaking of some hype, so the Dallas Cowboys are morons, and let Jerry Jones is a moron, let me rephrase that, and let arguably the best defensive player in football go to one of the best defenses already in Green Bay. And now the Green Bay Packers are just by far the best defense in the league right now from what
say it. Yeah, say it. It's not the NFC, man. It's the league. Say it. Yep.
It's not just the NFC. This team, the whole team looks incredible, don't get me wrong, but the defense is not letting good teams score, which is scary. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention. I know it's not fantasy relevant, but I think it is, because this is a team that I think they're this good that you have to think about starting those not guarantees. Your flex position, this has to go into that. If they're playing Green Bay, I'm probably sitting them if they're on my flex. That's how good this defense has started to play.
It's a well described point. A flex worthy individual definitely should be second guessed against the Green Bay defense. I like that.
Yeah. So that's one of my biggest ones. And then the last one we kind of got into already, the QB injuries. Like last week wasn't a big deal, or the first week wasn't a big deal. It was Purdy. Yeah, not saying that Purdy's not a big deal. It's just, it was one person. Right. This week, Joe Burrow's out for 3 months. Jane Daniels questionable for this week. It seems like he's not playing from everything I've heard, but you might.
I wouldn't play him. It's week 3. I wouldn't play him.
Exactly. Justin Fields came off the field rough after a bad game anyway.
Concussion, yeah.
Concussion, which concussion protocol, more than likely he's not going to be able to play next week. I don't know how long that's going to last, though, so that might be a short-term thing. J.J. McCarthy, from what I understand, got injured. Josh Allen's a freak, and he broke his nose, but he's still going to play. It doesn't matter. He's married, too, so he doesn't have to look pretty anymore. So, but all this to say, like, it's already happening. Like there were 56 quarterbacks that started last year, and we're going into week 3, and there's already 5 quarterbacks that are probably not going to play that started the year, and not because of how bad they were, just because they got hurt already.
Yeah, that's something to highlight. This is not performance based. This is injury based. So like we're gonna have performance based changes, which will obviously inflate those numbers.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that offensive linemen learn how to block a little bit better so we can keep our quarterbacks that actually are relevant in fantasy healthy. That would be great. So anything else you got from the takeaways this week?
No, sir. I think I'm pleased with the way we handled that.
Beautiful. I think so too. So we're going to go out to our standouts here. As always, we're going to start with, or I guess as we did last week, not always, we're going to start out with the quarterbacks, and I'm just going to gush over my guy from the rookie class last year, Drake May. Quarterback 3, 19 to 23 for 230 yards and 2 tutties, 10 carries for 31 yards with a touchdown on the ground as well. He owned the field. Like what I said about Penix last week, which did not come to fruition this week, he completely owned the offense. Everything about it. Also, he was playing Miami, so let's caveat to that a little bit because Miami's a joke right now. However, he was QB3, played well. If you had him as one of your darlings, very smart. Spencer Rattler is my other guy, quarterback 10. I don't know how often I'm going to get to say Spencer Rattler is a top 10 quarterback for a week. So I took the opportunity to do it this week. 25 to 34, only 207 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then 4 carries for 14 yards on the ground. 207 yards, nothing great. I know that. But 3 touchdowns, pretty accurate. 9 incompletions on 34 passes. That's pretty good. So he definitely came back from a terrible first week. So we'll see who the real Spencer Rattler is, or if it's going to be a Jekyll and Hyde every other week here. But wanted to at least showcase him because I don't think we're going to see him a whole lot in this part of the show. So,
no, great points here. Another quarterback that had a terrible week 1 that had an exceptional week 2 was one of the quarterbacks I wanted to highlight, Russell Wilson. Dude had 30 completions, 450 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick in a shootout with the Dallas Cowboys. He coming in at QB2 for last week. Insane numbers by Russell Wilson, and again in a shootout with Dallas. It was a fun game to watch for those of you who were able to see it unfold. But yeah, let's hope this is Russ getting into a nice little groove here with his Giants wide receivers and wide receiving corp, and let's see if we can get another game or so like that. Another one I wanted to highlight is one who a lot of people gave eye rolls to or groans, Mac Jones. For some reason, the stigma on Mac Jones is that he's absolutely terrible is baffling because, quite frankly, he handled BTJ better than Trevor Lawrence ever has. And he did himself pretty well in this starting for the Niners. He went 279 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 fumble, and a win against the New Orleans Saints. He came in roughly around 19 fantasy points in a half PPR format. So, yeah, he looked really well. He looked really well for the impromptu start that he was going to have. Enough that I think if the Niners were to start him at least next week or the week after in garnering Brock Purdy's absence, I think they'll be okay. And I think all the other players like your Pearsalls and CMCs, you can start with confidence.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Like, there's no one on this team. Kittle's hurt. Juwan Jennings is hurt. Or Jennings played, didn't he?
Yeah, Jennings played, but he has been hurt. You can tell he's not 100%.
He's got something going on. Obviously, Ayuk's out. The starting quarterback obviously is out, and that's why Jones is playing. But there's very few weapons, and he's able to get this done. It's 26 to 39. That's a really nice day for a backup. So I get that. And me and you both had the same person on our list, by the way, in Russell Wilson, because I was going to eat crow. 100%. I'll own up to it. I still think Jackson Dart needs to start sooner rather than later, but that's just me. But for 1 week, Wilson looked incredible. Also, I want to play as many fantasy players as I can against Dallas. Just saying. Just a little caveat there.
Yeah, until they get that secondary cleaned up, man, wheels up on Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, Bland didn't play, so that had a lot to do with it. But they've let up a lot of points the first couple weeks. So, and then we're going to go to running backs if you want to start that.
Yeah, I'll start with Devon Achane. He had 122 total yards, 1 touchdown, and 8 receptions out of 10 targets. Basically, one of the only things really positive of the Miami Dolphins offense. He came in running back 3 for the week, 93% snap share, which is ridiculous for running backs. All those individuals with the Aldi Gordon shares are dreading that numbers, myself included. But I did want to give, as much as you wanted to eat crow, or as much as you were going to eat crow on Russell Wilson, I'll eat crow on Jonathan Taylor. He's going to be my second call out on the running backs. He's actually RB1 for the week. He had 165 rushing yards, 50 receiving yards, and a touchdown. He hasn't had a target he didn't catch this year. So Jonathan Taylor is caught every ball thrown his way, and then again he is on pace to have his typical rushing numbers, excelling into the top 3, top 5 of the league.
And the one thing that I want to point out is everyone thought Denver's defense was going to be so good. He did this against Denver's defense. 215 all.
Yeah, 215. Yeah, 215 all total yards
against that.
Yeah, he was a beast. He was a beast, and he's really so. You tell when Jonathan Taylor's healthy. You can tell when he's healthy because he's a completely different player. You can tell when some players are able to play through injuries, some aren't. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying Jonathan Taylor can't, but Jonathan Taylor healthy is a completely different animal.
Absolutely. He looks like the player who was running back 1 for the year right now. So that's good to see as well. So for me, I'm going to eat crow again. Ramondre Stevenson. Running back 6, 11 carries, 54 yards, 5 for 5 for 88 yards in the air. Catching the ball there. 65% snap share, which I believe that's going to change, but if he plays like this, it might not. With Trevion Henderson there, who everyone, if you've listened to me once, you know I've talked about Trevion Henderson enough. 35% really upsets me about that. I don't even have a share of them, and I'm still upset about it. And then the other one, Kenneth Walker, running back 7, everyone had him for dead. Some people were saying don't play him. I don't know if it's because of our overpaid defense being so good, or if it's more along the lines of just Kenneth Walker woke up. 13 carries for 105 yards and a touchdown. Caught 1 pass for 13 yards, his only target. But the key here is he had 105 yards on 13 carries in 35% snap rate. So he didn't play that much and still did this. I don't know. You can look at it 2 ways. The first way is the negative way, which is, wow, Charbonnet played 50 to 65% of the plays, which is a huge difference than what it has been in the past. Or you can look at it and say, see, if they would just do a 50-50 split, Walker would have had almost 140 yards. So whichever way you look at it, that's your preference. I look at it as I think he should have gotten a little bit more snap share. I got to watch the whole game because he played my Steelers, and man, that defense looks bad. But anyway, I think he's a player that you have to play every week. And yes, you might get bit by Charbonnet every once in a while, but this is like playing Monty with Gibbs or like.
Stop right there. No, I love that. I love that analogy. I love that analogy. I think it's a consistent fantasy piece that you're going to start each week that could potentially be vultured by the other 1B. I think it's a very fair comparison to Monty, other than being touchdown dependent.
Yeah. So then we have the wide receivers, and you love this stuff that I'm about to talk about. So There's a quarterback in Denver, right? He played in Oregon for a year. Guess who his wide receiver was? Same wide receiver he's playing with in Denver, Troy Franklin. Franklin was the wide receiver 8 on the week. 8 for 9, 89 yards and a touchdown, one carry even for 11 yards, 83% snap share. I thought he was the number 4 wide receiver going into the year. Obviously, that's not the case. I don't believe there were any injuries on Denver's wide receiver core.
Nope.
I didn't hear of anything, so I was pretty surprised to see 83%. Obviously, in Oregon, they had a cohesion, these two, and it has just continued. It didn't continue last year, which happens with young wide receivers. But the second year, playing with someone who he played with in college, only for a year, granted, but still had a really nice year. I don't think you're going to keep him in the bottle. I think he might become that wide receiver too. I'm not a fan of Mims, so that's one thing. But he would be a really nice piece to have with a Cortland Sutton. And then I talked about him a little bit beforehand, but we just have to give kudos. I don't like talking about the guys who should be in the top 10 every week that we expect. However, this guy's the only one who has been in the top 10 every week that we should expect. And it's Puka Nacua, wide receiver 6, 8 for 9, 91 yards. Also had one carry for 45 yards, and he scores. So he got his touchdown on the ground on a one play for 45 yards. 69% snaps, which I feel like is low, but I never understand why the snap share for a dude like Puka is so low, but he needs to come out of the game every once in a while, especially the way he plays. And then he's the only player, like I said, to be in the top 10 both weeks. I just think that's so impressive with all of the wide receivers that are out there right now that are good, right? He's the one guy who was able to do it 2 weeks in a row. So pretty impressive there. You're up.
Yeah. One I wanted to give kudos to, again, is Rome Odunze. He came in a wide receiver 4 this past week. He's outplaying DJ Moore as the wide receiver 1. Everybody was curious who was going to be the Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Bears. I think we found it. He had 7 catches for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns. He played 100% of the offensive snaps for the Chicago Bears. Now, if you're looking for usage, you can't do any better than that. So I'm going all in on Odunze, carrying this and excelling with these types of numbers for the next few weeks. And the other one I wanted to shout out was wide receiver 5, who had some help with Russell Wilson from previous discussions of what I had, but Wan'Dale Robinson. I think he's a very underrated wide receiver. He's overshadowed by neighbors constantly, and the Giants team that has not necessarily been successful in the past few years. He had 8 receptions for 142 yards and a touchdown, and he played 70% of the snaps. He's clear-cut wide receiver 2 on the Giants team behind only Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, and one thing that I always I kind of figured Rome was going to take over as the number 1. But I didn't think it was going to be week 1 and 2. DJ Moore's going to get his at some point, I believe, especially once they start double-teaming Rome. How couldn't you, the way he's been playing the first couple weeks? But there's definitely a rapport there between Rome and Caleb, and it's fun to see.
Absolutely.
Go ahead with tight ends.
Yeah, speaking of rapport, I wanted to call out, we're going into tight ends. I wanted to call out Ja'Tavion Sanders. Big fan of him last year, and then he had himself one heck of a head injury, concussion, and knocked him out for the rest of the year. But he is definitely a receiving type tight end. He had 9 targets, caught 7 for 54 yards. He played 66% of the snaps. Look, if you have a quarterback that is 4'6", struggling, you're going to want to have a tight end. You're going to want to have a tight end that's going to be able to catch short range balls, and he's able to do just that. And he's also a red zone target as well. He came in at tight end 9 for the league. Tight end 4 was Dallas's Jake Ferguson. 12 targets for Jake Ferguson on a team that you have George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. Now, again, I understand we had a little bit of a shootout on our hands, but 12 targets for a tight end is insane numbers. He had 9 catches out of those 12 targets for 78 yards. Again, 12 targets. He played 73% of the snap share in that Dallas game.
Yeah, Jatavion Sanders is the other one that I had on my list that you ended up having as well, so I'll let you have him.
Appreciate that.
I have been a fan of Jatavion Sanders. I loved him in Texas. I've said this before. I thought he was a wide receiver for Texas because he caught the ball so much. So I knew he was going to be something in the NFL if his quarterback was going to be able to succeed in Bryce Young. So looks like they're playing pretty well together, and hopefully this continues. As far as Jake Ferguson, I mean, how many times did Dak throw the ball?
Crazy.
It was so much fun to watch that game, but it was insane as well. If you like defense, don't watch the Cowboys. Oh boy, it doesn't. I don't think it matters outside of like those unbelievable defenses. They're just going to score. I mean, they scored on Philly. Granted, no Jalen Carter, but they scored on Philly, and Philly is supposed to be one of the better defenses in the NFL. So, I mean, this is going to be a fun offense to watch, and Jake Ferguson is just another piece to that. For me, I went with the old head, the guy who just will not quit, and everyone wants him to. Zach Ertz, tight end 2 on the week, 6 catches on 8 targets, 64 yards and a touchdown, 90% snap share. Yes, they do have Ben Sinnott still. He's just sitting on the bench, and he is two. He has had 2 top 10s, but was projected the number 22 tight end on the year. So that's why I wanted to highlight him. He's that one guy that no one thought was going, and I don't know why people think this, but no one thought was going to be relevant in fantasy. However, if you have not let him go yet on your roster in a dynasty league, he has only produced for you last year, this year, when he was behind, or when Trey McBride was behind him, produced. When Goddard was behind him, produced. Like, he just keeps producing as long as he stays healthy. So the other one, if you watch this game, the Green Bay Packer game, you know who should be talked about this week. Tucker Kraft looked like one of the best players in the NFL this past week. He was insane. 6 catches, 7 targets for 124 yards. Let me say that again. 6 catches, 124 yards. That's 20 yards a catch. Plus a tight end or a touchdown. 91% snap percentage. He is the number one. You can say whatever you want. Jaden Reed's now down. I always thought Jaden Reed was the one. People can say Matthew Golden. We'll see. As soon as Jaden Reed went down, Tucker Kraft was the number one target. No questions asked. And he was really the number one target before that, too, in this game. He was just the one who was able to get open, and then once he got open, good luck tackling this dude. He was just a bear. I had so much fun watching him play on what was it, Thursday, I think they played?
Yes.
Yeah, so I've been waiting to talk about this guy for 5 days because we record on Tuesdays, and now I finally get to, so I'm going to gush over him. He had an incredible day, fun to watch. I can't wait to see him next week. So, yeah, we're going to go into our third part here. I don't know how to segue out of that. Sorry. I was gushing too much. We're going to talk about flex options for your week 3 matchup. And like I said, I actually will give you flex options this week, not waiver wire ads. So we're going to do from 5 to 1 each. And I'm going to start. So my number 5 flex option is Tony Pollard. He's playing the Colts D. They give up 5.4 yards per carry so far this year. And I know the Colts D looked like it was good. Miami's in disarray, and Denver played pretty well against them, actually. And also, Tony Pollard's a really good outlet in the passing game. He's the only one there, which helps. There's not many of these backfields that are just one person, especially when you're looking at the waiver wire. The flex options. And the Colts are also allowing the most rush yards in the NFL, which I was very surprised about with how good the defense, I thought the defense was, but 355 yards on the ground. So who's your number 5?
My number 5 would be a wild card. I'm going to go with the third wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to go to De'Ami Brown. The reason why I want to call him out is because there's a lot of offseason hype from Liam Cohen indicating the Swiss Army knife capabilities of De'Ami Brown, and so far he's showing it. He shows his passing game, he shows that he's able to do a bunch of rushing game as well and behind the fields. Last week he went 5 for 7 for 66 yards and a touchdown. 66 total yards and a touchdown. He averaged about 15 points on a half PPR fantasy scoring. So he is going to be placed into some of my lineups here next week with a Houston defense that doesn't necessarily look to be fully up to date. The Houston defense secondary, you can see them focusing on Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas, leaving De'Ami Brown to run around all over the backfield.
Beautiful. And De'Ami Brown seems to always have that week. So maybe you're Nostradamus in predicting it this week. That'd be pretty cool to see. We'll have to keep an eye on that one. For me, Calvin Austin, he's playing Patriots defense. 13 plays of 20-plus yards that the Patriots defense has given up. Guess what Calvin Austin is in this offense? The deep guy. Big bomb threat there. So they're also allowing the most yards in the NFL in the air in 677. So I would want to play the deep ball threat for that's playing this defense as of right now. So that's why Calvin Austin is my number 4.
I love the call on Calvin Austin. I'm going to stick with the Jacksonville Jaguars on number 4. I'm going to go with the Bashal Tootin. And he's finally getting himself some opportunities here with the trade of Tank Bigsby being shipped out to Philadelphia. And there was 0 time wasted in regards to getting him into the form. He went from 3 points to 19 in the span of week 1 to week 2 in standard formatting. He rushed 8 times for 42 yards and secured both targets for 32 yards and a touchdown. But he's also returning some kickoffs. He got about 26 yards on kickoff returns, and there are some leagues where that scoring does matter. So he seems to be kind of like an all-purpose type player where he's able to be utilized. He was drafted with hype that he was going to potentially be the next Bucky under the Liam Cohen system, and looking forward to seeing exactly what else he could do in the week 3.
Beautiful. My number 3 is also a running back, Isaiah Pacheco. They're playing the New York Giants, their defense. They've allowed 4 rush touchdowns. This guy is a bruiser for Isaiah Pacheco. So, and really, this one was kind of like a feel. Like the Chiefs are 0-2. You can't go down 0-3. You don't have much to receiving options. I think this is going to be a run game. And I think also to save the defensive 7 for the Giants, keep him away from your quarterback. You got to run the ball, and that's another reason as well. So Isaiah Pacheco is like my sneaky play, if you want to call it, but I really have some faith in him this week. So.
My third play is going to be a resurgence of who you've had in the previous breakdowns. I'm calling in for Troy Franklin. Again, recap of his numbers last week: 89 total yards, touchdown. 100 total yards and a touchdown. 83% snap share. Troy Franklin is going to be. I think he's going to continue this type of pace. He's going to continue this type of snap share and continue this type of connections with Bo Nix. I'm putting him in my flex spot 3.
I love that call. I really do think he's number 2 in this offense that we think is supposed to be good. So I like that call. Jameson Williams is my number 2. Playing the Ravens D. Granted, the Ravens have played the Bills, so these numbers might be a little skewed, but they're allowing the second most yards, 612, in 10 plays of 20-plus yards. Again, just like Calvin Austin, J-Mo's the deep guy. Like, it seems like the trust is gaining every single game at this point. So I really like Jameson Williams to have a big day, especially since he's the number 2 receiver, not even the number 1.
My 2 is could arguably be the 1 after some of the news today. I'm going with Jordan Mason. I'm going to take a small victory lap. I don't like to wish injuries on anybody here, but I will indicate that Jordan Mason was one of the big ones that I said one of the biggest handcuffs to acquire due to the injury-prone Aaron Jones, and unfortunately, it's already shown his ugly face. He got placed in the IR due to the hamstring injury earlier today, so Jordan Mason's going to be in line for some more work. No pun intended, he already kind of had like a leg up on Jones from the 2 games that they've played. He had 24 carries for 98 yards. and he had 4 targets, catching 3 of them for 15 yards. He's kind of being utilized already. They brought in Cam Akers, so that tells me that the Aaron Jones injury is somewhat of a concern for them. So wheels up on Jordan Mason.
Yeah, and if Cam Akers is going to be the backup, wheels up on Jordan Mason. And then my number one guy, I think he might have been your number one last week, George Pickens. Eventually it's going to happen, I promise. This dude is too talented. He needs to get his head out of his derriere. He's playing the Bears D, they allow 7 touchdowns in 7 20-plus yard plays. 7 touchdowns is the most in the league. And the Lions just put up 52 on them. I'm not saying the Lions shouldn't put up 50 on teams. Just they allowed 52 points to a team when we thought this defense was supposed to be good. But with the offense running the way it is in Dallas, if Pickens can be unlocked even a little bit more, it's going to be even more fun to watch. Lamb obviously is going to get his, and Javonte Williams looks like the rookie Javonte Williams, which is great to see for him. You just talked about Jake Ferguson having a great week, but I think it's George Pickens. It's time for him to actually have that big game that we've been waiting for. For granted, only 2 weeks, but still. So that's my number one, is George Pickens.
I love it. My number one will probably be the last time you could put him as a flex. It's going to be Quinshon Judkins. I'm putting him in my last flex only because we're just waiting to see exactly what kind of usage he's going to have in a full-time aspect. But I believe he's going to be one of those ones where you set and forget as the season goes. He had his first start. He had 10 carries for 61 yards. He's averaged 6.1 yards a carry in his first NFL game. He had 3 catches for 10 yards, so he had about 71 total all-purpose yards. And look, he's already been named the tops on the depth chart for week 3. I think he's going to be an absolute volume hog. He is going to be an absolute workhorse, and I am so excited. I waited a long time for this moment, and I'm looking forward to week 3 and Quinshon Judkins doing whatever he can against that stout Green Bay defense.
Oh. I was with you all up everything you said. I was with you up until you said Green Bay defense.
It's fair enough.
But
Green Bay, we'll see. If there's ever a game, if there's ever a defense we want to see him break out against, this would be the defense you and I hyped up. Yeah,
this would be really nice to see him play this defense well, because that defense is serious. Mm-hmm. And I 100% agree. Whether he plays well or not this week, now that I know what defense it is, I didn't look at what team they were playing. This is the last time you're going to have a chance to put him as a flex. He's going to, if you have him on your team and you have the luxury of putting him on as your flex, that's one thing. But in flex conversation, he's probably an RB2, maybe an RB1 if it becomes a 2-headed backfield. So we'll see what happens there. I'm a little bit worried about the 3-headed backfield, but Jerome Ford, I don't know how long he lasts in this backfield. So we'll see. But I love that. Your 5 were Diami Brown, Bashal Tootin, both from the Jaguars, Troy Franklin, Jordan Mason, and Quinshon Judkins. Mine are Tony Pollard, Calvin Austin, Isaiah Pacheco, Jameson Williams, and George Pickens. So hopefully that helps you in your starts, or if you have them, make sure you play them in your flex positions. Anything else before we jump out of here?
No, this was a fun episode. This is where it really starts. This is where you really start to break away. The week 3 is where we really start to break away. We really start to see the teams that are potentially the ones who are going to represent the playoffs in their respective divisions, and we see the teams that are going to represent the top 10 in the NFL draft in April.
Absolutely. I love it. Couldn't have said it better myself, so I won't. So for Jeremy, I'm Mickey. Obviously, this is dynastymttops. Check us out on Podbean, Apple, and YouTube. Social is at dynastymttops on Blue Sky and X. We might be doing a little bit more with that as well shortly. and then email us at dynastymttops@gmail.com for any comments, questions, show ideas, anything you had a question on. We can maybe talk about that as well. So again, next week we're going to be talking about obviously the week that was, the week that's going to be, week 3 and week 4, and then also our main topic next week is going to be trade database. So we're going to look and see what kind of trades are going on, what we agree with, what we think is a little bit overpay, underpay, things like that. So it's going to be a fun show. 3 weeks in, you're kind of, like you said, starting to see what do you need to do to become that team, to be a contender. And if you're already kind of a contender, what can you do to jump over everybody else? So that's why I think trade database is week 3 is a great time to be able to do that, and we'll do that next week. But for Jeremy, I'm Mickey. This has been Dynasty with Mountaintops. Have a great week.
Thanks a lot, guys.